Hi, I want to talk a little bit today about the courage to be seen and a little bit about this topic of backbiting and gossip in our culture. It's all everywhere. I live in Lebanon and I live in Kenya. And in Lebanon right now in the whole Middle East, we have dreadful wars, lots of violence. But every day we have violence going on within our communities. People making assumptions about other people, gossiping about them, backbiting about them, and not understanding the harm that they do. I have written something. I want to start really serious about this subject, because part of how we create better teams and productivity within the corporate space is also to create zones of safety. And this will always come from the leaders in the companies. If you start making silos or you create unsafe areas where people are not free to talk, you have many problems. And there are so many stories that live in silence, not because these stories are not important. They're very, very important. Even on the smallest level, they're important. But because they feel unsafe in the light of day. Stories wrapped in shame and fear, in misunderstanding, in the fear of being reduced to a single moment, a single mistake. None of us are perfect, and we all know that. And yet it is within that imperfection that our character is shaped. Our complexity as human beings begins to take a form that is beautiful and with depth. We're not simple human beings. We're certainly not singular. We are stories laid over time. We have incredible histories, great stories, great histories, good or bad. There are stories in our histories. But stories, if told carelessly, without kindness, without mindfulness, and without context, can be taken and twisted and made into something incredibly unrecognizable. I had a friend a few years ago who took their own life. Not because their life had no value, it had great value. It was a significant life, one of my mentors, in fact. But because their pain was turned into a spectacle. Because gossip and unkind voices online chose fragments of truth about this person, but dressed them as if it was the whole truth. And I remember thinking, what is this need we have to prove that others have failed? And not just failed, we want to add flavor to it and say how they failed in a drastic way. And to collect their worst moments. And then, when they're at their most fragile, offer them up for ridicule and for laughter. Yeah, a lot of people do that. As though a human being could ever be reduced to the worst thing that they have ever done. There is a cruelty in that, a deep forgetting of our own humanity, a refusal to see that no person is the sum total of their mistakes. And so people hide or retreat into themselves. They construct versions of themselves that can survive in the world, presentable, acceptable, polished. Look at me, I have no imperfections, but beneath that surface lives a deeper truth, one that aches to be seen. Not for validation, but for wholeness, to heal, to accept that they are valid. We are told that vulnerability is the path to authenticity, that to be fully alive, we must be fully seen. But what is rarely acknowledged is that vulnerability requires extreme safety. And the world as it stands does not always offer that. We live in a culture, globally, where fragments are mistaken for wholes, where a glimpse becomes a conclusion, where gossip travels faster than understanding, and judgment arrives before curiosity has even had the chance to find the truth. But we think we know each other. But what we often know is only the smallest projection of a person, the illusion that we all give off, the part they felt safe enough to show, or the part that you were willing to even acknowledge or see. And yet from that fragment, we build narratives, we assign meaning, we pass judgment. There is something deeply violent in that. It is in its own quiet way a form of erasure. And still, the need to be seen does not disappear. It just waits. It waits for a different kind of space, a different kind of presence, a different kind of we. Because the world cannot yet hold everyone's truth with care and kindness, then perhaps the responsibility does not lie with the world alone, but with each of us individually and collectively, to begin creating smaller spaces where truth can be held with tenderness, with your friends, trusted friends, with your family, trusted family members, with a counselor. And yet there is a cost. For when we make our world smaller, when we lose who cannot yet understand or hold the fullness of who others are, we do not just lose connection. We risk losing art. We risk losing expression. We risk losing genius and the kind that stretches the imagination, that challenges the norms, that carries within it the seeds of solutions to problems we have not yet learned how to solve. We must become people who can not only hold stories, but cherish them without rushing to define them or judge them. People who understand that what is shared is never, ever the whole story, but only a doorway, a small doorway into something deeper and larger and far bigger than our own limited understandings. People who resist the temptation to turn someone else's vulnerability into conversation, currency, or entertainment. People who, when faced with another's truth, to witness rather than to judge. This is not easy work. It's very difficult to do, in fact. To ask us to sit in discomfort, to release certainty, to accept that we may never fully understand another person's experience. Because there are those who cannot yet understand and tell their own stories, we must stand and tell their stories for them. Because it's not because they lack courage, but it's because the cost of being seen is still too high. So we must stand for them, not by speaking over them or about them, but by shaping environments where their stories could one day be told without fear of being dismantled. By interrupting gossip gently but firmly and saying, that's not my understanding, it's not my truth. By refusing to participate in the quiet violence of backbiting. By remembering always that what we think we know is never the complete truth. It's only a fragment. And fragments, when handled carelessly, can cut and can kill. But when held with care, they can become part of something bigger and something truly extraordinary. Perhaps the question is not how do we create a world where everyone can safely tell their story, but rather where can we begin to create the first place where one story can be heard with kindness and with care? Because that is how we change things. Not all at once, not everywhere, but somewhere, with someone, with us. And in that small intentional space, something remarkable happens. Shame loosens its grip. Truth finds its voice. And a person, perhaps for the first time, experiences what it means not just to be seen, but to be seen with care, with kindness, with acceptance. That is where healing begins. That is where authenticity becomes possible. And that is where we remember that being human was never something to hide. That's not naive. No. This is necessary. Absolutely necessary. Thank you.